Welcome to day 15, a relatively long day. Left at 7:30 this morning, travelled for a few hours out into the Judean deserts, and finally ended up at Belvoir Castle. This is a castle built by the Crusaders in the 11th and 12th century during their crusades into the Holy Land. This crusade in particular means beautiful view, and it was a pretty stunning view, all looking around into the Jordan River and valley, etc., etc. The castle itself had multiple fortifications. This is really interesting to see. Kind of, you've got the moat that have been dug out, and then the castle made from the rocks of the moat, of the digging out of the moat, and see the various different defences of the inner fortress, etc., etc. And finally seeing and hearing the story from Amir Galani, once again our guide, about Salahuddin, who took the castle eventually by digging a tunnel under the mountain in which the castle was on, shoring it up with kind of heavy wooden beams, and then lighting the beams on fire and causing part of the mountain to fall down and breach the wall. When the defenders realised the wall had been breached, they surrendered, and he actually gave them safe passage off the Holy Lands. So there you go. I'm pretty sure part of that is from Kingdom of Heaven, with the wonderful Orlando Bloom, if you'd like to see that. I'm not sure it's the same castle, but it's a very similar idea. And Saladin does the same thing in that movie. Following on from this, we jumped back into the bus and headed off and went and saw a kibbutz. Kibbutz is a name for the kind of socialist collective farms, I guess you'd call them, that sprung up all around Israel. They were kind of headed up by David Ben-Gurion, the first Israeli Prime Minister. And this one was right on the border of Jordan. And so we went down and looked at these three bridges that had gone across the Jordan River, right on the border between Jordan and Israel, and an ancient Roman bridge built about 2,000 years earlier, a Turkish bridge built in 1904, and a British bridge built in the 1920s, I think it was. And during the 1948 war, Jordanians kind of charged across, destroyed the kibbutz that was there, that had actually been built on top of a caravanserai, however you say that word, built by the Mamluk Empire. And following the destruction of the kibbutz, a guy, I think his name is Emil Brigg, he ran down and he blew up sections of all three bridges, stopping the Jordanians being able to get across again. And he got awarded medals, etc., etc. It was this same bridge, same area, where a hydroelectric plant was built by an Israeli immigrant from Russia, an engineer. He built it. We got to see this very cool light show and audio-visual representation of it. He built it on the Jordanian side, and they were allowed to live there, the workers in the factory, and they supplied 90% of the electricity right up until the war in 1948. So that was pretty interesting as well. Then headed off for some lunch at the Sea of Galilee. Had a whole fried fish. It was very tasty, along with a whole bunch of other things as well. Beautiful, beautiful lunch, very enjoyable. And went down and took some photos and video by the Sea of Galilee. Obviously the source of many, many biblical stories. We then continued on to the Golden Heights, and this, I have to say, would probably be the most disappointing aspect of the day. The weather kind of came onto us, and we drove up to this mountain where you're able to look down into Syria itself, and there's a couple of areas there where there's little things you can kind of put one of those little binoculars you can put money into and see far off in the distance. You can see barracks, you can see destroyed areas of Syria, and it was just all fog. Could not see a single thing. It was like standing in a cloud, because that's exactly what we were doing. So that was disappointing. Took some photos of me in front of a white wall of cloud. Then we headed off to a winery in the Golden Heights. So wine making is relatively new. It's only a couple of decades old in Israel. We did some wine tasting. It was very tasty. and then headed on back and got back at about just before 8. So a relatively long day, but very enjoyable. Tomorrow is a half and half day, continuing on with the program at Yad Vashem, and then the second half of the day is a self-directed day where we'll be working on our projects and asking questions of various professors and using the resources at Yad Vashem to continue the unit of work that we'll be working on. So hopefully it will be an enjoyable day. By the time this loads, it will be that day, because for some reason the internet is not working in the hotel. So I will go directly to bed after this, and this won't be actually coming to a screen near you for another 15 or 16 hours. So we'll see you then.